Hello and welcome. My name is Andy Crook, and my mission is to help garage owners become more successful in business. This week, we're in the financial blur, and I want to talk about money, but not just turnover and not just profit, not just what's left in the bank on a Friday afternoon after the wages, the parts bill, the VAT, the rent, the tax, the insurance, and the suppliers have all had a nibble at it. I want to talk about the three types of money available to you in your garage business. Because most garage owners are working hard for one type of money, while completely missing out on the other two. And that is one of the reasons good technicians end up owning a business that doesn't give them the freedom that they wanted. They get the keys to the building, but not the key to running the business. They own the garage, but the garage owns them. So today we're going to keep things simple, and we're going to look at the three types of money in your garage business. That's active income, earnings, equity, and passive income. And the question I want to ask is, which one are you actually making? If the answer is only earnings, you may not have built a business yet. What you may have done is created a job for yourself. So let's get stuck right in. So let's take the first type of money, earnings, active income. This is the money you make from working. You open the doors, you service cars, you diagnose faults, you carry out MOTs, you fit brakes, clutches, timing belts, tires, batteries, sensors, alternators, and all the other jobs that keep the workshop moving. You sell labor and you sell parts, the work and the shop. You turn time, skill, tools, knowledge, and effort into income. Now, let me be clear. There is nothing wrong with earnings. Earnings are, in fact, essential. Without earnings, you don't have a business. What you've then got is a very expensive hobby. The problem isn't earnings. The problem is when earnings are the only type of money the business creates. Because earnings are usually tied to your time. You work, you earn. You stop, it stops. You get ill, it stops. You go on holiday, it stops. You spend a day sorting staff or suppliers, comebacks, complaints, and customer updates, and suddenly the best technician in the building hasn't produced any labor for hours. And that's the painful bit. And for many garage owners, business only works because they're working. They are the technician, the manager, the service advisor, the workshop controller, and the diagnostic expert. They're also the complaints department and the quality control department, and the person who remembers that Mrs. Jones needs her MOT before she goes away next Thursday. Everything exists in their head. And at the start, that feels useful because it makes you fast. It makes you flexible. It means you can make decisions quickly. But over time, it creates a problem because the business only works when you're there, then the business is you. And that means it has a ceiling. A very low and very tiring ceiling. That is why some garage owners are busy, but broke. They're working hard, they're doing the hours, the diary's full, the phone's ringing, the ramps are loaded, the car park is packed. But the owner is still stressed, tired, and wondering why the money never seems to match the effort. And that's what I call the earnings trap. Busy doesn't always mean better. Turnover isn't success. Turnover is volume. Profit is stability. Cash flow is survival. So yes, earnings matter, but earnings on their own aren't enough. Now, the second type of money is equity. And equity is the value of the business itself. It is what the business is worth as an asset. Not what you hope it's worth. Not what you feel it should be worth because you put 20 years of blood, sweat, weekends, late nights, and Sunday mornings into it, what it is actually worth to someone else. And here's the question I ask business owners all the time. Could someone buy your garage and run it without you? Not with you staying on for 3 to 5 years to hold their hand. Not with you still answering the phone every time a technician gets stuck. Not with you popping in every day because they don't quite know how we do things yet. Could someone buy it, understand it, run it, and make money from it from the get-go without you? If the answer is no, then you may not have much equity. You may have a busy workshop. You may have a good reputation. You may have tools, ramps, customers, and a phone number. But if the real value of that business disappears when you disappear, then the value is not in the business. The value is in you. And you can't sell you. And that's why equity matters. Equity is built when the business becomes less dependent on the owner. And that means systems, processes, people, standards, measurement, clean accounts, repeatable ways of working, a business that someone else could understand, a business that does not rely on memory, mood, panic, or heroics. This is where many garage owners become uncomfortable because they have spent years being the hero. They are the one who solves that impossible fault. They are the one who rescues the job. They are the one who calms customer. They are the only one who knows what's going on. They are the kingpin. But the same thing that makes you valuable can also make the business fragile. If everything depends on you, then you haven't built a business. You've built a bottleneck. And if you want equity, the bottleneck has to be removed. Not overnight, but intentionally. And it starts with simple questions. How do we answer the phone? How do we book in a job? How do we actually price diagnostic work? How do we order parts? How do we update customers? How do we deal with the extra work? How do we handle complaints? How do we check quality? How do we actually hand the vehicle back? Because if all of that's in your head, then you have a problem. Because documentation is the beginning of delegation. And delegation is the beginning of equity. That does not mean you need a huge operations manual with a big logo on the front. You don't. You need useful instructions, clear standards, and simple systems. A way for the business to repeat what works. Because the more repeatable the business becomes, the more valuable it becomes. And that's equity. It's not money you can spend today. It's wealth you are building today. And it's very different from just earning a living. And the third type of money is passive income. Now, I want to be careful with this phrase because passive income is spoken about all the time. And in fact, some people online make it sound like money just falls from the sky while you sit on a beach with a laptop and a cocktail. But that's not what I mean. In a garage business, passive income means income that is no longer directly attached to you being in the workshop every day. So that could be dividends from a garage that runs without you. It might be rent from a property that the business owns. It might be income from the business where your team operates it while you own it. But this is the important bit. Passive income comes last, not first. You don't get passive income from a chaotic business. You do not get passive income from a garage that needs you every 5 minutes. You do not get passive income from a business where every decision, every complaint, every price, every job, and every problem goes through you. That's not passive income. That's active stress. Passive income is the reward for building the business properly. So first you need earnings, then you build equity, and eventually the business can generate income without you personally creating every pound. That's the sequence. And this is where some owners get it wrong. They try to jump to freedom before they build the foundation. They want more time off, but the diary can't run without them. They want a manager, but there's no systems to manage. They want dividends, the profits are inconsistent. They want to step back, but the team still needs them for every decision. They want passive income from an active mess, and that simply doesn't work. The business must become stable before it becomes independent, and it must become independent before it becomes passive. That's the sequence. It's not glamorous, it's not flashy, but if you do it that way, it's far more likely to be successful. Which brings me on to one of the biggest mistakes I see in any businesses, not just garages, when the owners try to add before they improve. So in a garage, they'll add another ramp, another technician, another service, another van, another diagnostic tool, which comes with another finance payment, or another unit, another site, another problem. And then they call it growth. But sometimes it's not growth. Sometimes it's just extra weight. And this is why I always say more, better before additional. Because you need to do more of the right work, not just any work, the right work for the right customers, the right jobs, the right risk at the right margins. And then you need to do it better. Better pricing, better diary control, better labor recovery, better parts margin, better customer communication, better job selection, better systems, better standards. Only then should you think about additional services, additional staff, additional equipment, additional premises, additional complexity. Because if the core of the business is broken, adding more will not fix it. More broken things are still broken. They're just louder. So, before you ask, what should I add? Ask, what should I fix? The difference between a garage owner chasing growth and a business owner building value is asking, what should I fix, not what should I add? So, let's get down to brass tacks. The 3 types of money are usually linked to what I call the 3 stages of business. Stage 1 is infancy. The business depends heavily on you. You work, you earn, you stop, it stops. At this stage, the priority is sales, profit, and cash flow. Active income. You need enough of the right work, priced properly, delivered well, and paid for. Stage 2 is adolescence. This is where the business starts becoming less dependent on you. It's also what I call the danger zone, because you're building systems and you're developing people. You're documenting standards and you're measuring what matters. You're trying to create a business that somebody else could understand and eventually run. And you're building equity. However, this is when it's most likely to go wrong. It's when you're most likely to get frustrated and revert back to infancy, what I call a looper-do. Because at this stage, the priority is order, not more chaos, order. And it's very, very difficult to manage. Stage 3 is what I call maturity. The business can operate without your daily involvement. And this gives you passive income and options. You're no longer needed for every job, every decision, every customer, every complaint, every price, and every problem. At this stage, the business starts giving you options. You could stay involved. You could step back. You could take dividends. You could sell. You could invest. You could build something else. The important word is could, because options are your reward. In the first stage, you have pressure. In the second stage, you should have progress. In the third stage, in maturity, you have options. Most garage owners did not start their business because they wanted pressure. What they actually wanted was more freedom, more time and financial freedom. But freedom doesn't come from being busy. It comes from building a business properly. So this is this week's Atomic Action, and it's quite simple. I just want to ask you this question. If you stepped away from the business for 4 weeks, what would break first? So to phrase it another way, the way I often ask this is, could you go on holiday for a month? And if you did, what would break first? Not 4 hours, not 4 days, but 4 weeks. If you went away and they couldn't contact you for whatever reason for 4 weeks, what would stop first? Would it be the diary? Would the bookings fall apart? Would customers stop getting called back? Would the workshop lose control? Would jobs start to get priced badly? Would parts ordering become absolute chaos? Would the quality drop? Would complaints increase? Would cash flow suffer? Would the team stop making decisions? Would everyone start trying to ring you by day 2? Or would it be hour 2? The answer matters, because whatever breaks first is where the business is still dependent on you. And that's where the work starts. Not where the ego wants to work, not where the newest opportunity is, not where the new shiny equipment brochure points you, where the business is weakest. Fix the lowest level need first. If sales are weak, fix sales. If profit is weak, fix profit. If systems are weak, fix the systems. If leadership is weak, fix the leadership. Do not add more before you make it better, because more work without better control creates more stress. More staff without better systems creates more confusion. More services without better pricing creates more leakage. More sites without better structure creates more chaos. So this week, do the 4-week audit and ask yourself, if I disappeared for 4 weeks, what would break first? Write that down, and that's your next priority. That is your fix this. So, to conclude then, let me remind you that there are 3 types of money in your garage business. Earnings or active income give you that income. That is the money you work for. Equity gives you wealth. This is the value you build into your business. And passive income gives you freedom. That is the income you no longer depends on you being involved in every job, every decision, every day. But they must be built in the right order. Earnings first, equity second, passive income third. Unfortunately, most garage owners only ever build the first one. They work, they earn, they stop, it stops. But if you want the business to give you something back one day, you have to build more than earnings. You have to build value. You have to build systems. You have to build and develop people. You have to build a business that can breathe without you. Because the goal is not just to own a garage. The goal is to build a business that gives you choices. So ask yourself, what stage am I at right now? What do I need to fix first? And remember, if you should, you must. And what's stopping you is probably starting. Thanks for listening. See you next time.